we're here. Hi, welcome to Nikki Nights. It's me, Nikki. You guessed it. I don't know, I'm in a kooky, funny mood today. I'm just all over the place. I'm laughing. But I'm really excited because my guest is somebody that, she just plays these, badass, fierce women. So, Samantha Ferris, I cannot wait to talk to you. Here we go. Hi.
Hi.
How
How's it
are you?
going? How are you, darling? Look at your curly hair.
I was just about to say your hair looks amazing.
You know why? My hair is 10 times curlier than yours is.
Really?
Oh, fuck. It's huge. It's out to here. I'm a Brillo pad with eyes is what my friends and I used to say. But I straighten it for film because it looks weird on camera.
I've never really worn it like this on camera. I've gotten lazy in the summer, so this is what happened.
But it's so much more beautiful. I mean, I know the grass is, the grass is always greener, but everybody always says, because it's like mine is huge and I put the right stuff in it. It's really ringlety. I got a box of shit. And everybody always says, oh my God, your hair is so lovely curly. Why don't you ever wear it on film? And it's like, I've tried. I look like a woo, or like a white trash mom, or downtown east side down and out. For some reason, my curls don't work on camera.
It's interesting. I've had, the hairstyles I've had though in some projects. I look back now, I always end up, it's either there was one project I did called The English Teacher where I had this wig and it was honestly, it literally was like this. And it was like, because I was playing this woman back in the 1600s. It was awful, awful. But
yeah. Well, they very seldom get your hair right the way that you would do it. And I don't know if that's just me being high maintenance, but hair and makeup, I'm always like, because you're used to what you do. And I know that they do what they do. And I'm such a control freak. I try to shut up. But sometimes it's like, oh, wow, it really should look way better than this. But I'm like, okay, you know what, whatever. I'm getting paid to sit here and do this. But sometimes my hair, and I'll do it before I go there. And they're still like, well, let's do this. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not telling my family about this project. No one's looking at the picture. Not ever.
I've had a couple of those where I was like, all right, I'm going to look this way. Well, then this one is not going to be played on the home.
No, I'm not putting this on my demo tape. This is not going on my demo tape, not ever. And then your friends look at it and go, ooh, my mother, who never asked me about film, doesn't care, not interested. The one time she watched it, she said, oh, darling, what have they done to your hair? She's very British. And I'm like, she said, I finally saw something you were in, and it was just a bad, Hallmark MOW. So you already look like shit in those things. But she said, oh, they've done something with the bangs. And I'm like, really, Mom? I said, what did you think of the thing? Oh, I couldn't tell. I couldn't get past the bangs. And I'm like, okay, that was her only comment that she ever said about my acting. And that's it. But that's mother's.
Oh, I know. I just recorded a song the other day, a couple weeks ago. And I played it back for her. And my mom was like, it's great, but it's breathy. I'm like, well, because I'm singing, I'm breathing. We have to breathe, Mom.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Just something, but you're right, it is moms.
They're always going to be that. It's always going to be that. And there's different levels of it. I got a friend of mine who's just, her mom's a bitch. My mind's not great. Hers is really like, ooh, have you gained some weight? And she's like, no, Mom, actually, I lost a few pounds. And she'd like, oh, you'd never know in that dress. She's really hardcore old school. And I'm like, fuck, I would be pissed if mine talked to me like that all the time. Once in a while, okay, because they're parents. But oh my God, you can't be horrible to your kids.
Well, you played one of the most badass moms I've ever seen, though. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ellen,
but I loved my kid and I was good to her.
You were so good to her.
Yes. Oh yeah. Now what? Are you a big fan of Supernatural?
So here's my Supernatural backstory. I had a few months off and I was scrolling through the channels, and I think it's TNT here in the States.
Yeah.
They play it all the time. They'll play seasons at a clip. And I caught an episode and that was it. Done. Hooked
really? What? Yeah, and I only know because I know back to the beginning because I started in season 2. They made me watch season 1, and it was an unknown show at that time. No, it was Supernatural. They just knew there were 2 hot guys. And I remember going, okay, so I watched season 1. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. I thought it was for young kids. I thought it was, I'm like, whatever. I watched the first season because I had to, and I'm like, this is actually really good. And it scared the hell out of me, which you wouldn't think that a TV show would, but that Bloody Mary thing, I'm like, don't ever say that 3 times. And it really got me. So I'm like, wow, it's actually a good show. But where did you start? Did you just see it in the middle of season?
I caught it in like the middle of like season 5, and I just was like, oh, I have to go back now. And I went all the way back. I watched from the first episode to the last episode. I've watched episodes over again.
Wow.
So, and then I worked with a buddy of yours, Mr. Chad Lindbergh.
I know, and I think that's how, because I even was thinking about it before we got on here. I'm like, and I looked you up on IMDb, and she's like, no, she hasn't done Supernatural. I'm like, what's her connection? I said, I know it's Chad, because Chad, I think, sort of connected us. But did you work with Chad? So
not on a project. We actually did some paranormal investigating together.
Oh, that's right, because I went out and did it right after you, I think. Or right before, anyway, around the same time. That's right.
Yeah, so Chad, I was in contact with Chad. That's how we became friends, was through that show, Chad Lindbergh's Badass Celebrity Ghost Hunt. He had me on because I was such a fan of his from Supernatural that I followed him on Instagram, liked all of his pictures, total, and so we became friends. And then he had me on an episode of that show, and I'll never forget, he had, I think I was the first, we were the first 2 girls, I think, on the show. He had guys first, and he was taking them to smaller places. And then here I come, and he's like, we're going to Eastern State Penitentiary. I'm like, really?
Really?
Going all the way, aren't we?
Oh, and how was it? Did it work out? Was it fun? I mean, he's such a fun guy. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But he said, how did it go?
It was wild.
Oh,
that
good.
was my first investigation ever. So
that's fantastic.
Go big or go home. And,
yeah.
I was learning from the best, though. He is the best. Nick Groff was there from.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was awesome. What's your stance on the Supernatural now that you've been in Supernatural? I'm curious to know.
What do you mean? What stance about where it is now? You mean?
No, I mean what do you think are spirits real?
Oh, hell yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me? You know what? There's no way. Now, given some of the stories that you hear are going to be fabricated, but there's no way that you can hear that many things and have it all be made up. My parents, who are the most pragmatic people on the face of the earth, both have a story. And trust me, they're British. They're hard-nosed, pure facts. My mom and dad would roll their eyes at anything, even this woo-woo. So both of them they go back and told me different stories about what happened in their lives. Absolutely. And I don't, they say that we have 5 senses, 6 senses. On a phone, this is gonna be dating you. When you look on an old phone, you look on the thing. Let me hang on a second. You look on let's say I'm phoning. Oh, where is it? That and that. See that? The star and the pound. Well, when we were kids, that had no meaning. It literally wasn't used at all. And I remember finally saying to somebody, what are those? And they said, for future use. Well, I think we do have all the senses. They're future use. We haven't used them yet. We're the star and the pound key, although I guess the star and the pound key are getting used now. But I think we have all these senses, like autistic people. I watched this great thing on, was it Amazon Prime, about they're identical twin autistic girls, and you have to go find it. They're in their 50s now, only identical twin autistic kids, now women. You can say a date, doesn't matter when it is. They will tell you what day of the week it is, and they'll tell you what the weather is. Now, the hair went up on the back of my neck, because you hear that, but you watched it over and over. Dick Clark loved them. And it blew me away so much that I had to look at a friend of mine and say, now, don't tell me that's going to have a point. Somewhere down the road, that's the star and the pound key. There's a reason that autism is here. I know people call it a challenge. Many people would not call it a challenge. So there's so much that we don't know, and we're this one little planet. We can't be the only little planet with people on it. That, yes, there has to be another side. There has to be.
Yeah.
And not even dreaming on that. There just has to be. Any scientist would tell you. What about you? Do you believe in the supernatural?
I do. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had some interesting experiences, and definitely, just some of the investigations. There was another one that Chad and I did. We went to Lake Shawnee in West Virginia, and it was wild. I mean, literally, we got light, flashlight evidence. We're asking yes and no questions, and we're saying, if yes, turn it on, and it's turning on and off. Nobody's touching it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's on my phone. It was wild. So it was. I find it really interesting, and I also find it kind of comforting because, death is an inevitable part of life.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to me, knowing that this isn't maybe the last place that I'm going to see my loved ones,
no,
I'm better off, with
well,
that.
and I'm a little woo that way. See, I believe in manifesting. I believe in putting focus and putting a vibration into a thought. We can create the stuff in our life. And part of that is, and many say this, that when you die, it's just energy cannot be created or destroyed, they say. And we just go off to whatever that big pool of energy is. And I think we come and go. And there's a great book by a woman who had a near-death experience. And it wasn't like Wayne Dyer promoted her. It wasn't some woo-woo woman trying to make money off a book. She actually said, she had meningitis. She got it overnight. She was about to die. She could tell you the conversation that her husband and the doctor had on the other side of the hospital. She could tell you what her husband wore to the hospital and didn't even come and see her at the beginning. Like, she came up with information that you couldn't know. And what she'd said about the other side was, she went there, and she said it was the most loving, the most fantastic, she said it was just pure love and light. And she said she would love to have stayed, but she promised that she would come back and share her story. So she had a choice, and she came back. And there are facts that cannot be refuted in that book. So again, she can't be the only one. So to know that, I used to be scared of death. Now I'm like, I don't want to feel it. You know what I mean? Like, get me in the back of the head with it, or let me fall asleep and whatever it is. I just don't, I'm too squeamish.
Me too.
But we're going somewhere great. And I always say that when somebody said, oh, my dog died, my parents died, my whatever. And I always try to say, you know what? They're somewhere way better than where we are. Not that this is horrible. I mean, right now it's a little horrible, but where they're going, where we're all going, it's apparently thumbs up. Like, it's fantastic. So I'm like, okay, I can get on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm cool. I'm like, I'd like, many more years to act and get all that out and live my life.
Yeah.
But eventually, someday, I'm cool.
We're all going, we're all going at some point in time. Again, I just hope it doesn't hurt. And I don't want to drown. I don't want to, there's certain things you don't want to go, but it's like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with the next phase, the next dimension, whatever's out there for us. Apparently, it's fantastic. So with that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. I can do it.
And I was just looking up, you did another movie called The Tall Man.
Oh, yeah.
Another, like, supernaturally sci-fi, because that's another myth and legend is of the tall man. And what was that experience like?
It was weird because we shot it up in BC, small town, British Columbia. So,
that's
a
where
little
you're
town.
from, right?
I'm from BC. Yeah, I'm from Vancouver. And that was shot outside of a town called Nelson, or a really small town called Caslow, where if you see in it where I live in a trailer, a really gross trailer, that's in a little town called Caslow. And you blink and it's gone. But they're beautiful parts of British Columbia. But it was in the woods, and that trailer park was truly that bad. Like, we didn't even have to do much to that trailer. Like, it was, because I remember walking and seeing it and going, wow, set deck and the greens guys and paint really did a good job. And then one guy turns around and he goes, shut up, the owner's right over there. And we did nothing. Like, we put some crumbs on the ground. And I'm like, it was just creepy. And there's very tall trees in BC. And that town is really, it's windy, a lot of tall trees. So we were in a really creepy environment as it was. So yeah, it felt interesting. I mean, it's always interesting when you go and shoot out of your own town. Like, you're staying in a hotel, your sleep isn't the same, your food's not the same. Yeah. You're not, you're dreaming about weird stuff. It was, the director was a French guy, and he was very artistic. So he really paid attention, if you saw it, and paid attention to certain things, which were really freaky. And I kind of like that stuff, as long as I'm not there alone. Like, the whole ghost hunt with Chad, I would love that as long as I'm not alone. Like, I'm like, when they say, oh, go into this, we'll pay you $100 to go in. Nope, won't do it. Never will do it on my own. Never going to happen.
Well, that's what
But
they
I do
told me. They were like, when I was going back to Eastern State, that's what happened. They were like, well, you could go to this cell block alone, for 20 minutes, or this one, or go here alone, I think to Death Row. And I was like, let's go to the big one. And I went alone, and just me and the camera guy. It was,
Look at you! Wow, I would not have done that. And wasn't it like Kevin Bacon, or there's some actor that went into, I think it was Alcatraz. I think they had access because he did some movie where he was very good at it a long time ago. He played I think it was a true story about a guy being stuck in jail. And I think they allowed Kevin Bacon to go, I got to look this story up, to go into Alcatraz by himself, and just because he really wanted to feel the part. And he said it was absolutely terrifying. And here's a grown man who's an actor, and he said it was creepy and odd and just terrifying, frightening.
Where did you guys go on your ghost hunt with Chad?
It was some really effed up hotel. Although, you know what, there were people staying in it, but I think the wing that we went to, I think that's closed off. I don't think there were rooms. You know what, I can't remember the name of it, but it was in California. They picked me up, I think at LAX, and we drove for like 2 or 3 hours. If you said it, it was it's a beautiful hotel, but it's, they're all old. It's old little rooms and creaky,
I'll tell you, I had one of my first experiences when I was in London at one of these old hotels. I mean, this place, it was called the Savoy, I think. It was so old.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
My parents talked about it. Yeah.
And, you're talking, our schedules were off, the sleep schedule, we're traveling, we were there for the Hairspray Premiere. And I put my dress, I had my premiere dress, one dress, I hung it in the left closet, and I shut the door, and I went to run a bath, and I came out, and I went to check and make sure my dress was there. I was going to take it out and steam it. It's not in the left closet.
Wow.
It was in the right closet. I opened up.
That's what I mean. That just gives you the willies, You're like, oh, and you're sure, and you check, and you're like, I'm sure I did this.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, all right. So I just went back, and then I'll never forget, I had an issue with, I think it was my tub or my toilet that night, and I had to call maintenance. And so the guy came down, and I had heard all these like whispers and rumors that the place was haunted. So I was like, who knows better than the people who work here?
Yeah.
So I took out like a few euros out of my pocketbook, and I was like, can you tell me the history of this hotel? And he was like, oh, ma'am, I can't. And I was like, can you now?
Bribing the guy.
He did. Frank told me everything. He told me to stay off of the second floor because there was a woman who, like, her lover went off to war and never came, or she didn't think he was coming back, and she threw herself out of the second floor. And apparently, as she did that, he was on his way to see her. So it was like some tragic love story, and apparently she haunted the second floor. So needless to say, I never went to the second floor. I didn't need a run-in.
I don't know. You know what? Like I said, if somebody said, I would always want to go check it out. Again, it might be with a beer, and it might be with a friend. I would never do it alone, but are you kind of interested in pursuing that stuff? Like, we shot a movie, what was it called? That was another creepy movie called, it was one word. Cheryl Ladd's daughter, Jordan Ladd. Anyway, it was in Saskatchewan, another province. And what do you?
We filmed Hairspray in Canada. And
you did?
Yes. Oh my God. We were in Toronto, and then we were in Saskatchewan for some time.
Where did you guys stay in Saskatchewan? Because that's the hotel that I was about to tell you about.
I don't remember. I think because we were only there for a few days, and I think they drove us in and out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what we did. The same thing. We were in Saskatchewan, and it's a big, huge CP. CP is a big, it's a big hotel, but they're old. All the CPs in Canada are these big, when they used to make hotels, like the Banff Springs Hotel is like blocks. It's big and big green, roofs. Like, this is back when they used to build these beautiful, and we've got one in downtown Vancouver. It used to be the Hotel Vancouver. Now it's a Fairmont. But the one is just
I've stayed in that one.
Yes, yeah, and that's got ghosts too. But the one in Saskatchewan had full-on stories, and I don't think they actually used any of the rooms on the fill in the blank, whatever it was. And I asked all of the staff, and every single staff member had an experience. And it was either there's two. It was either a woman that threw herself out of a window or something like that, or killed herself in the suite. And there was another ghost haunting the hotel, and big, beautiful, like right out of The Shining, hallways that were miles long with beautiful red old carpets and stuff like that. And every single staff member that had been there longer than 2 months had some kind of an experience. And I just remember thinking, I want to do this. Like, I want to see something, anything. I've seen little bits and pieces, but you've never a full-on confirmation. So I'm like, I would love to see it. And then I'm like, yeah, but Sam, if you were alone and it was 11 o'clock at night and you were coming home, would you really want to see it? Would you follow them and ask them questions? I'd always like to think, what would you do if a ghost actually came to you?
Yeah.
Would you ask them? Would you say, hey, where did you come from? Do you need a way out? Do you need whatever you say to ghosts? I'd like to know what I would do. And I'd like to think that I would be strong enough to actually ask them and try and find out information rather than returning and screaming and running away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would hope that I would do the same. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's I think it all depends on, you're right. Like, have we had a glass of wine that night?
Yeah.
There's so many factors that can go into it.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you really hope that, now not in a dark basement, like you going to a cell block there, I don't want to see something there. Then I think, can you die of fright? I think I would die. I think my heart would stop. I would die of fright. But you would hope that if it was somewhere that you had the gumption and the wherewithal to just say, wow, where are you from? Are you really here? Turn that thing over, whatever, just to make sure that you can say before you die, you really genuinely saw a ghost. I think it'd be so cool.
It would be. It's always interesting. I feel like it's interesting, the night before my grandmother passed, I did see something outside my door. It was, and I knew, who it was. It was very much I felt it was my grandfather coming back to bring her over.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a very, very tall, dark shadow. And that right there, he was like, I knew. But, and people are going to think I'm totally off the wall for telling this story. But, oh well, like, I'm so open with every other part of my life. Like, why not at this point?
Yeah.
But I just think, it's interesting. I think you got to believe in something.
Yeah.
And you got to have faith in something, whether it's whatever it is. Just know that this isn't the be all end all.
No, it's not. And I think that's actually comforting to know, because when I was a kid, I used to think, when you die, that's it. You're never coming back, like ever, like infinity. And when I used to really think about that, would terrify me. And then as I got older and I read that book from that woman, Anita Moorjani was her name, Dying to Be Me, I think it was called. Such an interesting book. My mom wants to take herself out of the game when she gets to a certain point. She's very independent. She's losing her eyesight. Her health's not good. And she always said, I'm doing this on my own. And I said, before you die, you have to read this book, or I will read this book to you, because I want everybody who's close to death to read this book. A friend of mine, Kelly, died of breast cancer, and I tried to talk her into it. I'm like, Kelly, I just want you to read this, because this woman totally sets the scene that the next stop is so super fantastic that at least you're going into it without fear. Like our dad died, my brothers and my dad died years ago. Not a great guy, not a great loss, but I've had a number of experiences with him that, again, I can't be sure. I want to be sure, but I remember sitting up in the middle of the night, seeing him at the end of my bed and saying, wow, what are you doing here? And he was just very monotone. And I asked him a couple questions, and I said, can you see Tim and I? And he said, no. And I said, you can't? And he said, no. And I said, where are you? And he said, I can't really explain it, but I'm somewhere else. And I just remember going, okay. And I went back to sleep. And of course, you wake up in the morning and go, did that happen? And Tim and I had a couple things. We came home from dinner once. I turned around and there was a big flash, and I swear to God, it was my dad. And somebody saw his face print on our front window like the next day, and just a bunch of weird stuff. And I'm like, that again, it can't be coincidence. It can't be. It can't be just your vivid imagination. At least that's what I'm going.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it was growing up. I've noticed that you did a project for somebody who kind of started my interest into it. You did a project for R.L. Stine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. You have looked at my IMDb. That's right. The Haunting Hour. That's right. Look at you doing your homework. That's right. The Haunting Hour. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, back in my like middle school days, he was the author. Like he was very much, everybody was reading Goosebumps, and
Yeah.
so I remembered that for me was like one of the first shows that intrigued me in that way. What was like one of your favorite shows growing up that kind of either made you want to start acting or, you know, that intrigued you?
Acting or ghosts. That's two totally. What would I have seen that would have wanted to make me become an actor? I mean, God, it was. I mean, I'm quite a bit older than you, so I'm trying to think what would have made me. I started late, right? I got into the acting thing. I was a radio announcer. I worked for the music industry. You know, I did radio for I've been a radio announcer for 30 years.
Wow.
And one role, not a woman's role, but one role just blew me away. And it was Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Have you ever seen that?
Yes. Oh my God.
We were so blown away. And we'd never seen him before. This was his first thing that we'd seen ever. I mean, he had done stuff, I guess, but we hadn't seen it. We watched that movie, and my best friend and I looked at each other and said, how did they get a mentally challenged kid to act? Like, how did they get him on his mark? Because there's no way, we would have bet money, there was no way that we thought that he was not acting. We thought he was genuinely, wasn't autistic, mentally, well, we used to call it mentally retarded. You're not allowed to say that now. Mentally challenged, whatever his situation was, we were like, there's no way that that's an actor just acting that. And then we found out, we looked it up and we're like, yeah, Leonardo, no actor's going to use that name. And then of course, you know, years later, he blew up. We were like, oh my God. So there's a couple of roles out there, key roles that you looked at and went, wow, that's amazing. And I'm trying to think, if I started I mean, like I said, I did a whole bunch I was sort of already acting, you know, 28, you've already done a whole lot of it. When you're in the media and you're in the public eye, you're already doing a whole lot of presentation that way. But you know what, I can't actually think of like a woman's role where I went, I want to do that. Or, you know what, I'll think about it later when we're not here and I'll go, hey, I remember now. What about you? What's the role? What roles did you look at and go, I want to be an actor?
So for me, it was two women that like stuck out. Everybody knows my idol is Mama Cass Elliot from the Mamas and the Papas, and
right.
So when I saw her in Puffin Stuff, which was like a million years ago, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, like she looks like me, and I can do that. I can sing and dance, and it's somebody who, you know, is different, and so that for that reason. But my favorite person on television growing up was Jessica Fletcher, Angela Lansbury.
Oh my God, a friend of mine who's my age never missed an episode of that. We laughed at her. Why? Why her of all people?
You know, it's really interesting. I've always been a big fan of hers, but she always reminded me of my grandma.
I would say that, yeah, that would make sense.
It's like interesting now that I don't have my grandma anymore. If I need a little comfort, I'll put in an Angela Lansbury movie but I've actually, my favorite role of hers was Sweeney Todd when she played Mrs. Lovett.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Of all the people, like favorite actors for me would be the straight up normal ones. Meryl Streep, absolutely my favorite female actor. Maggie Smith for different reasons. Diane Wiest, who I love. Helen Mirren, and Judi Dench. You know, those are the women that I would have watched and thought I could never put a candle to these women because, you know, but you look at that and go, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be able to be that deep into a role and have somebody so believe that you are that person that you just carry something for them.
Yeah, I was just watching The Queen with
Helen Mirren.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You don't think for one second that it's not the Queen. Right?
Yeah.
It's just brilliant, the transformation. And I think that's something that I would love to do is like totally get lost in a role like that, you know, and transform.
That actually terrifies me. And I see it when people do remakes or they play a real to life character. I actually think that would intimidate me because what if you get it wrong? What if you are the wrong person for what if you can't do them? I mean, given they probably test the hell out of everybody, and the reason you got it is because you did do something right with it. But that would be daunting to me, to take on a real role, because you're always going to get people criticizing. There's always going to be somebody out there that says, that's not her at all. What are you doing? You know, blah, blah, blah. But she nailed it. And most people like Heath Ledger, you know, rest in peace. You look at his remake of The Joker, and then here's Joaquin Phoenix, who I find smoking hot in a really weird way. He comes along, and how daunting for him. The last guy died because he did such a bang up kill. Like, how could you have done a better job? And yet he did a very different job, and equally as compelling to watch. So it can be done. I just think if somebody said, you're going to play, like the one role somebody always says, what role would you like to play? I'd always love to play like a Courtney Love, because of my voice and because I can be very edgy and raunchy. That's the stuff that I go to naturally. I want to play like her. I'd love to be able to play her, because she was, no offense to her, but that was her baby. She was a piece of work. Is a piece of work. She's a real, you know, she really played up those trashy years. She was probably high a lot, but she really played up. I would love to do that, but to play her itself, that takes a lot of work to learn somebody's ins and outs, and it can't be easy, you know.
It can't. I mean, I am always just so curious. So I think that's my problem. I'm so curious, Samantha. It's awful. Like, you know, they say curiosity killed the cat. Well, oof, please, just give me some more time, because I'm so curious. There's certain things like I just have to know, and the only way I'm going to know is if I do it, you know?
Well, but that's good. I'm the scaredy cat. That's smart, and that's going for it and saying, I want to do this. I want to take on that challenge. Good for you. That's healthy. And that says that you have a confidence in your acting. The fact that I'm like, I don't think I could do it. There's a certain, you know, lack of confidence that I have. So for you to go straight forward, I think that's healthy and fantastic.
But see, it's also weird, because the little things, like it's the little things that like happen on a daily basis. I find like those things I'm fearless in, and I'll run right towards them. But if my mom's like, oh, we need you to go to Stop and Shop, and I'm like, that's when the fear sets in. I'm like, are any of my neighbors gonna be there? Do I have to have the awkward conversations? You know,
really?
Like, that's what I'm afraid of, is the awkward run-ins with people that, you know, maybe who don't get me.
Yeah. You know, and I guess that's the interesting thing about life, and why we're all so different. It is the stuff that separates us, the stuff that makes you scared of one thing and me of another. I bring on anything. I can, because of radio, give me a microphone and I'll talk to 100,000 people. But put me in an audition space where I can be judged, and there's a casting director and 2 executive producers and the writer and the blah, blah, blah. The last couple of years, last year I took a year off, because it got to a point where I was absolutely terrified in the room. I was nervous. I couldn't get the lines out. Once in a while I'd get a good audition in, but I literally started to get very phobic. And I'm like, oh my God, Sam, what the hell? You can get a microphone. I can step out onto a stage. I've introduced, you know, huge bands without warning. Sam, go introduce blah, 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 Tragically Hip, whatever classic rock bands, because I worked in classic rock for years. No problem. And I thrived on it, and I love it. And get me on stage at those conventions. It's my favorite part of the conventions, is to get up and chat and just shoot the shit.
And you guys have been everywhere with those conventions, though. Literally, like, I'm surprised you haven't been to the, like, Oz, really.
I have. You know, I did the ones. I've been to Australia a couple times. I've been to England. I did the one where we traveled through New Zealand. I haven't done them in a while. There's a company that they use, which shall remain nameless, because I'm not big fans of theirs. Them and I had a bit of a argy-bargy, as my parents would call it. And I did a convention for them in Las Vegas a year or 2 ago. And after that, I haven't actually done one. Now I don't have a convention agent anymore. I sort of left him and left the time off. I'd love to go back and do them, because man, they are so much fun. They are just, it's the ultimate accolades. It's the ultimate satisfaction for what you do, because you're meeting hundreds of people that love what you've done. They cry when they walk up to you. One woman painted my face on her nail, on her fingernail at the convention. I have a picture of it somewhere. Like, to have people recognize what you do so intensely, there's not a better feeling. As an actor, there really is not a better feeling than that. Yeah, those conventions. Oh God, they were fun.
I always wish we could have had like a Hairspray convention. Just
Well, you know what? Maybe if you guys had been later, you would have, because anything that had sort of a cult following that was really culty, and if it came out at a certain time, there are conventions. Look at all the shows that are all the sort of sci-fi and Firefly and all these odd shows. And as long as they have a cult following, there are conventions around the world. So maybe you guys were just a little early, because you guys have Hairspray had a huge following, did it not? It still has a huge fan base.
Yeah, we have a really, really cool fan base. It's one I feel like as the fan base is getting older, they're just kind of showing the movie now to their kids, and it's
Yeah.
trickling down, and I love that. And that's really cool for me. Like when I've had parents. I'm on TikTok. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but there's this like 6-year-old girl, and every time she does a TikTok to one of my songs, her dad tags me. And
Oh,
yesterday he wrote, "Your little fan is at it again." So I went on and I left her a comment because it's just so sweet. Just to know that your work means something even this
yeah,
many years later, and
yeah.
whether it's conventions or TikTok or you
Well,
know,
whatever. It's still, the message is the same, that this person, you touch this person enough that they are affected by something you did in their life. It affected their life somehow. And that is the ultimate compliment, to have somebody be affected by something that you did, that you love, that you enjoy, and that was the idea. You want to
I'm
make,
not BSing you. When I watched you in Supernatural and I saw you play Ellen with like such a strong hand and you just got out there and rocked it, I was like, honestly, I want to play a role like that in my future because
uh,
you made a huge impression on me. And I remember texting Chad, and then I remember when we started this Nikki Nights, I was like, oh my god, I have to talk to Samantha Ferris because I just love her.
see, now that's what I mean. It's that kind of stuff. That's why, like, as you know, the acting industry is fucking tough. It's hard, and not and the acting is the fun part of it. It's all
Yeah,
the bullshit that goes on. And I
all
took
the
last
hoops that we jump through.
Oh, when you get that moment of what you just said, and what, at the conventions, like, I've had women be in the line, and they're at the line to come up and get your, and you can see them, and they're, first they're 200 feet back, then they're 20 feet back, and they're getting closer to you and closer to you. And women, this happened a couple times, they break into tears. Once they were like 10 people back, then 5 people back. And by the time they got to me, some were hysterical. And I'm like, when I first saw it, I was thrown off. I'm like, do they hate me? That, like, what's the problem? And it turns out that I guess my character, I was just very lucky that I had a really good role, and I played it well, and it just worked out. That it was that strong mom character. And so much mail and so many comments I've had, that women that had come up to me and said, it always makes me emotional talking about it. They were estranged from their families. They were estranged from their mothers. They hadn't talked to them in 20 years. And those scenes, especially the ending scene, made them phone their families, made them connect with, it always moves me so much. And I'm like, I could die tomorrow and know that I'm done. If I could quit acting tomorrow and know that I've done all that I could ever dream to do, because to have people come up and say that you hit them that hard. And, it's really, not to be humble, but all you're doing is showing up and being the part. It's really not that difficult to be the part that you're playing. And people go, oh my god, and it's like, not really. Hair and makeup's they probably got the toughest job. And then you got hired because you did that character so well. Out of 30, 50, 70, 100 people that they saw, that they knew what they were hiring. So you just managed to be really good at something you really like, and that's the ultimate, right?
Yeah,
you know
I mean, if we can go through life doing something we love, then that's what else can we ask for, you know?
and I look around, and I wish somebody said, would you go, what would you change? Like, would you go back and do this again? And there are days when I say, I wish I'd got a different education. I wish I'd added on and gotten, I'm getting my degree. I'm going to UBC right now. I'm getting my psych degree.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm like halfway through my 3rd year. It's a lot of work. Being an adult and working and trying to go and get a degree from a very tough university the biggest uphill battle, one of the biggest uphill battles I've ever done. But, would I go back and would I do this again? Would I get an education? What would I change? And then there's parts of it, like conventions and sitting here talking to you and getting paid a lot of money to go and have a lot of fun on set with people. Then I'm like, no, I wouldn't give this up for anything. So
Yeah.
Yeah, to do what you love to do. I wish that we could do it more often. I mean, the boys on Supernatural, Jared and Jensen, they've got the ultimate. They've got their best friend across from them and it's ridiculous how they go on
So
vacation
cute.
together. They ask their wives to marry them on the same weekend. These
Oh my
guys see each
God.
other more than most people see their spouses or families, and yet they still choose to spend every minute together. So they're best friends. They're now making crazy money. They've already 15 years of it doing what they love to do. It's already a comfortable shoe, their roles. So they get to show up and get paid a lot of money to do what they love to do. It's like, that's what I want. I want that. I don't want the fight to get the roles. And oh my God, 14 auditions, 15 auditions, you're not booking anything because they say that the average good working actor gets 1 in 13 or 14. I mean, that's a huge letdown. But to be able to do that all the time, that would be my perfect gig, I think. What about you? I mean, would you want a full-time gig right now?
I would. It's weird. I'm one of those people, I just always want to be working at any chance I could get. But I would love to be on a series, but I would also love to make movies at the same time, like when I was on hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done film and TV, totally different worlds, different experiences, but I love them equally. So, I mean, I can't wait to see, there's some projects coming up, and of course they're delayed because of everything that's going on. And I'm just I'm like waiting. I'm like a kid that's like waiting at Christmas. I'm like, please let me back into set. Please, please, can I come back yet? Like, just want to go back.
Nice. Hey, I got a question for you. Do people recognize you? Do you still get people that recognize you?
Yeah, I'll tell you a
Like
funny story.
daily, weekly, monthly, once a month, blah, 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 like all the time?
It depends. I can go a week without nobody noticing, or then it'll be like 3 people in a day. The other day I just wrote about it in my book. I went around the corner because I was taking my walk and I had my friend on FaceTime, and she said, "Oh, there's a new gelato shop I see on your corner." And I was like, "Mm-hmm." She was like, "You should go in." And I was like, "Mm-hmm." So I went in, and all of a sudden this very sweet girl held the door for me. I didn't think anything of it. I said, "Thank you." I walked in, got my stuff, came home. I wasn't home 15 minutes, and I see a screenshot come through on my text messages. And I'm like, and whenever my publicist sends me a screenshot with the summer I've had, it just makes me nervous. I'm like, who's saying what now?
Yeah.
And she said, no. And I read it and I looked at the profile picture. It was the girl who held the door for me. And she was saying, were you just at the gelato shop on da-da-da? And I was like, and so I wrote back to my publicist, just be thankful that you and all the other ladies can indulge once a month. I'm not safe anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird.
This girl caught me.
Well, now that phones and cameras are everywhere, there's no freedom anywhere. The worst is when you look horrible, you're in a compromising position or whatever it is, no makeup, no nothing. And I look like, and everybody goes, "Oh no, you don't," until you see me. I really do look like 2 pea holes in the snow without makeup. Like I literally, people don't even recognize me with my hair curly, no makeup on. I can walk in and someone can look right at me and know me, and they don't recognize me. It's when I open my mouth and speak, because I have such a specific voice, that people recognize me. That's when you see a picture when you're like, and it is weird. You're right. It's weird when you're living vicariously, or somebody says on Twitter, because I have a Twitter account and Instagram, not TikTok. Is TikTok a video thing? Is that what it is?
So it's
too
like
old for TikTok.
you can lip sync to video, like songs. And
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I won't be doing that anytime soon. But I've got the other two, and it's funny when you see were you, like you just said, were you just at a high school? Were you just at a blah, 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 living your life, and you're like, you gotta be careful when you pick your nose. You know what I mean? You gotta be careful where you fart, where you swear, because everything is fair game now.
I was in a mall one time with my mom, and it was Christmas time, and I had no makeup on, hair up in a bun. I think I even had a baseball cap on. And I'm walking through the mall, and my mom's talking, and this woman stops me. I start talking to her. She, asked to take a picture. I said, sure. My mom was like, where did you go? She turns around. She's like, I'm 20 feet behind her talking to this woman. She's like, can I ask you a question? How did you recognize my daughter? And she said, her birthmark.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Something that you would never have thought, because you see it every day and don't even think about it. And somebody say that they can actually pick you out of a crowd because of it. Did that weird you out, or was that like,
I was like, well, you were watching closely.
yeah, well,
Very
you're paying a little too much attention, but I find it so interesting. See, all my friends, I got to think, I've got maybe one or two actor friends that I hike with and whatever, but most of my friends are not actors. Because again, I came into this late in the game. I became an actor at 28, and it took years to even get really going. So I had all my friends as adults before. So my friends all laugh at me because they're like, last Sunday, I walk with my friend Christy on Sundays, and we do this big, and it's lovely. You know what? COVID has done it's horrible, but it's also opened up people to be very kind to each other. This woman, she has a huge apple tree in her yard. She's got a big box, and it says, and she's picked some, put them in the box, and said, please take whatever you like. If you're hungry, these apples are never sprayed, whatever. She put the thing on the fence. Like, she went out of her way to put this box and a big sign that said, please help yourself. These are fantastic apples. I can't eat them all. So we were out there, and of course we're, hoofing these into our face because they're fantastic, and we blah, blah, blah. And she walks over because she just happened to be picking up the apples. And I can tell, and I don't know if you can tell, I can tell when it's a Supernatural fan because of the look on their face. They just do this, and it's all of a sudden it says, and they're so stunned and they can't hide it. And, I'm used to it and I don't notice it as much, but when we finally walked, this woman got to a point where she was stuttering and then she was embarrassed, and then she just stopped talking and blah, blah, blah. And we walked away, and I'm like, whatever. And Chrissy goes, did you catch that? And I'm like, catch what? And she goes, somewhere in there, I think she figured out who you are, because she went red. She couldn't get a word out. She was looking at you. She was looking down, and I laughed and I said, I don't notice that. And she said, is it weird having friends that aren't actors? Because we don't notice any of that. All my friends are like, they recognize Sam, whatever. They just keep going. They couldn't care less. And it just is so interesting to be on the other side of that. When your friends are like, what? Oh yeah, I think somebody saw you in something. Yeah, they said you looked fat, or whatever, your hair was long. I'm like, great, thanks. That's my family saying. My mom's like, ooh, yeah, whatever. My brother's like, oh yeah, how is that thing going? I've been doing it for 30 years. How's that thing going?
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Tim. It's going all right. You know what I mean?
Like my career, it's going great.
My income, the things that's keeping me alive and, sustained and satisfied. Yeah, it's going okay. And they're like, or people, I don't know if you ever get this as an actor, somebody sees you and they're like, wow, you actually had lines and everything. And I'm like, what did you think I did, you guys? I've been doing this for how long? And they're like, oh yeah, somebody saw you and you were a cop or something. Yeah, you had a couple of words. And I'm like, no, guys, I had a lot of words. I was the mother of the whatever, blah, blah, blah. And your friends it's funny when your friends are not in it. I don't know if all your friends are actors. You probably started.
It's a mixed bag. Like, some of my friends are actors and some of my friends aren't. And it's always interesting. My best friend is an actress. And I think it's interesting. We met on a movie and we just hit it off. And so we share that. The struggle of this audition and this not going well, or losing a part to a younger actress, all of that, or I lose it to somebody more famous, whatever it is. So we share that struggle. But then again, I love my friends that know nothing about the business, that they're like, all right, we'll go to this party with you, sure. And then
they're like, whatever, free drinks, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, all right, it's a party for Slim Fashion or whatever. They're like, sure, So it's interesting to see. But my friends are really cool. My other best friend, he's been my best friend for 17 years, and he's just like, he's really sweet when people come up and ask for photos, like in the middle of dinner or whatever. Because I always feel bad because I feel like I'm ruining my friend's meal. I'm like, this got me in trouble again, and we just ruined the meal, but. It's really nice, to have supportive friends, and whether they're in the industry or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough industry. Oh, we were saying this. It's a tough industry to be a part of. So to have friends that have their feet on the ground, I found is very helpful, because you get out of your own head. Because as actors, I don't know about you, they've never said an actor thinks too little. You know what I mean? We overthink, especially come out of a crappy audition. You blow something, you look at yourself on camera, you don't like what you see. Like, I can't watch anything. I mean, I can barely hear my own voice. Like, we're so.
Honestly, can I tell you, I don't watch. People say that all the time. When's the last time you watched Hairspray? I'm like, a couple of years ago. I don't know. Like, I don't watch my own stuff. I just, once it's out there, and that's that. I don't enjoy watching my stuff. It kind of makes me a little uncomfortable sometimes.
It's very uncomfortable because like you see everything and it's so sad that we kick the shit out of ourselves and we're the biggest kicker, the shitters of ourselves more than anybody ever will be. And so you can't ever look at something just for what it is, objectively. It's just like, wow, you see, oh my God, I'm looking at my body, I'm looking at my eyes, I'm looking at every part of me that you pick on, you see it as that much bigger. So you never actually see, like, I don't know if there's any. Maybe my death scene in Supernatural is the only thing that I can watch and go, okay, I like that. And I guess I only like it because it got such a huge response. So I'm like, okay, I can watch that. And I don't mind watching. That was an ugly cry. I can do that. And that's the only thing that I can, anything else, I can't see because I just don't see it for what it is. And that's so sad. And I think that most actors experience that.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched Hairspray and liked it?
Oh yeah, I've watched it. Like,
you really watch it and go, that was actually really good. I got out of myself to watch how great this was.
It's hard sometimes to separate and be like, okay, I'm not in this scene, but I have noticed there are scenes with Christopher Walken and John Travolta, during their song "Timeless to Me," where obviously I'm not in it, and it's just it is magical, and I'm like, this is a pretty awesome project. So I mean, there are some scenes where I can step away, but once I see this Punim, I'm like, oh, there we go again.
And I hate that it's funny, the irony that most actors are really insecure and really self-critical, yet we pick this industry that is so rejectionary. Like I said, back in the day, it's probably even more now. If you got 1 in 14 auditions, you were actually rocking. I remember my agent saying that, and I'm thinking, what a kick in the pants. Like, we have chosen this so rejection based, and you may not get the role for a billion reasons. And, too short, too tall, too skinny, too fat, not right here. You remind the director of his ex-wife. You remind him of his, whatever. There's so many reasons why you don't get a role. And sometimes you feel like that one fucking rocked. I'm getting this one, and you don't get it. And then you think, that one was okay. And somehow, and you don't know the magic of, why did I have a good one? What did I eat that day? Let me eat it again. Some days you did really well, some days you sucked. And it just, I find that this industry can be so hard. It really is tough. Like, my friends come up and say, my daughter, can my doctor call you? Can my daughter, can my son call you? I really hate that one. Hey, can a friend of mine call you about getting into the industry? And I'm like, well, I'm going to tell them the truth. And they always go, well, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know that I would suggest anybody get into it right now, unless you cannot imagine yourself doing absolutely anything else. If this is the one thing that you're like, I want to do this for the rest of my life or die trying, then that's different. You got to chase your dream. But if some people want to do it, I mean, some people want to be stars. Some people want to be actors. Some kids just want to be famous. So, oh, they've told me I'm hot, I can go and do this. Well, you're going to be let down if this isn't really what you want to do. But I'll say to them, don't do this unless you absolutely have to do this, because this business is incredibly difficult. It really beats on you. I don't know if you've had that experience. I'm older now. Like, don't forget, my roles are going down. There are less and less roles for me, and I'm okay with that. I'm 51. I look great for 51. I've got other things going. And then when you get to my age, it's not the be all and end all anymore. You have other things that are important in your life, the people in your life. You become a little more zen about the stuff in your life. But as a young person starting out in this industry, man, I wouldn't want to be that person today. It would be difficult.
It's tricky. And I think, you're right. Some people just want to be famous. Some people just want that overnight thing. For me, it was about acting. And one of my friends said to me, he DM'd me one night and he was like, somebody just reached out and said to me, oh, my kid wants to act. And this person was pretty famous. And they want to know if they could come to you for advice. And
I hate that. I do hate that.
And he said, it drives me crazy. I said, it drives me crazy too. He goes, what do I tell them? I said, tell them what you think. And so he ended up telling them, you want to act? Okay, get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Move. He said, my advice, move to LA. Give up everything you know. Move to LA or New York. And really get into it. He goes, but get ready to go through the trenches. It's not going to be easy.
Oh, God. Not at all. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. And I think it's just important, like, as magical as the business seems, like, I feel like people look at my story and they think, like, it just happened overnight. And, I walked out of Disneyland and they picked me up in a Cinderella's coach. No, like, it, you have to put the work in. And so I do tell kids, yes, it can be amazing, but like you said, manifesting and making it you know, work for you. And so while it can be awesome, it can also be, you know, up shit's creek without a paddle.
So daunting, you know, just so daunting. And I think it's a different world than when I started, whatever, 30 years ago now. And 30? No, I'm not 58, I'm 51. Okay, so 25 years ago. And I think it's very different. And you know what, I gotta say, I'm liking this audition online. Like, I don't know what you're up to these days. I don't know that we'll ever go back to into an audition space. And that was one of my things that I hated the most, because you go in, and I don't know where you would go. Have you been living in LA, or are you somewhere else?
I'm in New York. I've
Okay.
lived in LA though.
Okay, going in the rooms when there's 30 other people that are your age that look, and you're all there, everybody's staring oh, you look so great, but everybody's staring daggers at each other.
Oh my God, it's such BS. It's
women are the worst. Women really are the worst.
Yeah.
I'm sure dudes, I've talked to my guy friends and like, no, guys do a little, what is it? It's not cock blocking. There's a word for it where guys go and they try and kind of psych each other out. Women are the worst. It's like, oh, you look so great. You know, it's just this passive aggressive F you, because they're insecure. They want the role. And I found it a really, really toxic environment. And that's when I stopped. And now when COVID came along, they're like, okay, guys, now all your auditions are in your house. And I'm like, what? I got my pajama bottoms on right now. Like, I'm lucky I put a bra on. Like, literally, my second bedroom, I've got it. It looks, and then the sad thing is, my auditions in my second bedroom look way better than any audition because I looked at, somebody would go, ooh, that audition, that, you know, so-and-so's audition space doesn't do you any favors. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thanks very much for that. But, you know, so now I'm like, I can do this on my own. I can tape up the sides next to the lights sometimes if you don't want to have to learn the whole thing off book. And I'm like, now I'm auditioning again. So now I'm like, okay, now I'll do this. But up to that point, no, not a chance. It was like, I don't know that I want to go back to this because it can be so daunting.
It can be, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few months and how everything progresses and the new precautions that are taken during filming. And, you know, so we'll see when the world picks back up again. But when it does, I hope to get up to Canada and I hope to meet you because I really enjoy you so much.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. And so thank you so much for having me. You got to come up here. I mean, you've seen it before, right? You've been here. It's a beautiful country.
Toronto, Vancouver. I always say to my friends, someday, when I'm ready to slow down a little bit, the one place I'd love to not retire but grow old is Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto's, you know what, you might find Vancouver a little mellow just because you're from that. New York and Toronto are the same, whereas funny, Vancouver and LA are the same. And they two are closer to each other than they are, even though they're the same country. So Toronto, yeah, would be a lot more New York. If you've been there, I lived there for a year and a half, many years ago when I worked for Sony Music. I was a music rep, and it's fast paced. I'm used to the West Coast, so I like it a little more laid back. I hike every day, I ski every day, I boat, and I do all that stuff. Toronto is way more cosmopolitan. There's way more stuff going on. There's way more vibe. But yeah, it is a great town. And shit, dude, you got to get up here now. Although with the whole COVID thing, I know New York was getting its ass kicked. Canada, we're doing really well. Vancouver's, we got an A forever. Like, we are killing it right now because our numbers are going up right now. But there was a while when it was like Vancouver, New Zealand were the big numbers, and New York was getting their ass kicked with the whole COVID thing. I've got friends there that have been terrified about what's going on. But you guys are doing all right now, hey?
It's getting a little bit better. Yeah, things are starting to, you know, everybody's starting to, maybe things are starting to get a little clearer and calm down a little bit. But, you know, it is New York, so there's that. We never know.
Yeah, and you guys are right on top of each other. Like, there's no way of being, like Vancouver, we have space. We have miles of space between each other, whereas you have a big city like Toronto and New York, you can't do it as well. But safety to you, my girl. I hope things go well. Good luck. Now, what have you got coming up? What have you got?
There's a couple projects. I actually started writing some projects because I was like, well, you know what? Actors always say, oh, there's no role up there for me, or there's not, and there aren't a lot of roles for plus size girls. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing them. So I've started writing a couple projects, and I start filming a new project in the fall. It was supposed to be sooner, but it got pushed. So, you know, there are some movies on the horizon, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good for you. Well, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. That's great. Again, you're younger.
And where can we keep up with you?
Well, I'm kind of, I'm chilling right now. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I've taken my time on. I mean, I've actually had a good summer. I'm like, screw this. A friend of mine and I went camping. I did more this summer, oddly, COVID, because, we did the stuff that we could stay away from. And normally I'm working, but I'm like, forget it. Go and enjoy your life. If we've learned nothing from COVID, it has taught me specifically, to not take advantage of and be grateful for all the stuff that comes along in your life. So this summer, when we finally got a summer, I'm like, screw it, man. A friend of mine and I, we went camping, just the two of us. A couple of different places. We went up and did this. I'm going to go back and see her. I'm taking myself off the books for a little while. I'm going to enjoy it. But I'm auditioning again. I put some stuff on tape. It's weird because Hallmark usually shoot like 72 movies up here a year. We're like the Hallmark capital.
Oh my God, it's always been you want to hear a corny dream of mine?
Yeah. You want to do a Hallmark series or a Hallmark movie?
I've always wanted to be in a Christmas movie.
Oh, we just did one. I just did one. And it's like, oh my God, they always do them in July because that time's out. We do, Hallmark, I would say 60% Christmas. And we do them all. We do them all up here. And normally what they would do is they would hire the two leads from the States, and then the rest of the cast would be Canadian because it's a low budget thing. Hallmark have now said all 72 Canadian actors, no American actors. And just because they're not necessarily, famous person driven, the Candace Bure's of the world and blah, 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 blah. But normally it's just, they're not super well known because they have a very template that they work with, and they're like, screw it, we can just hire all Canadians. So we'll be all doing we've all done a million Hallmark. Anybody up in Vancouver has done a million Hallmarks and some Lifetimes. But there's also series that they're quarantining the actors. They're bringing them up here, the leads, because we shoot a lot of stuff in Vancouver. Oh my God, it's 40, 60 shows at a time. I think right now they've already got, 25 shows in the hopper ready to roll. They have to prove that they're clean and safe. But I did a Hallmark thing 2 weeks ago and they were on it, man. Like it's changed. Craft service is different. You can't go up and grab anything anymore. The catering truck is now boxed lunches and everybody's wearing a mask. The actors, we all had it looked like there were welders. It had because they didn't want to play with their hair. So it was this thing that kind of sat on the top with a shield in front, and the crew all had their masks on, and but it was totally doable. You got your temperature checked at the beginning, so it's a bit weird, but it's doable. We will go back to that. We will go back to normal at some point in time. I don't know if we're going to go back to 100% normal, but the film industry is waking up again now, and so yeah, there's stuff going on. So hopefully, I'm going to book at least something. I'm going to put like 7 things. Yeah, exactly, 7 things on tape that's shooting up here in the last 3 weeks. So that's saying that yes, it is busy, and I'm hoping to book something because although I've eaten whatever I wanted to. I've got my COVID-20. I've done whatever I wanted to over the illness. So I'm like, oh, and I don't look skinny on camera. Even when I'm skinny, even when my thinnest, my boobs are gone and I'm like 120, which is, I haven't been that since I was a kid. Now I'm like, oh yeah, wow, no, I definitely look heavier, and it's all in here, and I'm 51. So age and that.
I just had oral surgery and all I've been eating is mashed potatoes. So please.
Yeah, that's right. All right, baby. Thank you so much for having me. You gotta let me know how you're doing. You're obviously on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff as well.
I am. And please, I can't wait to meet you when all of this ends.
You will. We will do that. You know what? When the world is safe, you will come up here or I will come down there and we'll go and laugh our heads off and have a drink and cheers to this crazy business.
Sounds good. I'll see you then.
Right. Okay, hang on before you go. I'm so sorry at the beginning. I didn't know that I was supposed to. I literally was sitting there waiting for you guys to invite me. And by quarter after, I'm like, have I fucked something up here? And I'm like, so I said to, I'm like, hey, Diana, she goes, well, the link was on the thing. And I'm like, oh my God. So is Nikki sitting in some room, sitting there waiting for me going, where is this fucking actor? This high maintenance. No. She's late. I was there.
I literally riffed for like 10 minutes and I told like awful stories.
Oh my, oh fuck. So you were just sitting there? Oh, dude.
Please don't worry.
Are you thinking I wasn't going to show up? I'm like, I waited till quarter after and I'm like, okay. There's no reason they'd be late. We're all on computers now. I'm like, I've done something wrong. And I looked at the link. I looked at the thing, and there wasn't a link to the Zoom thing. And I'm like, oh. So I said, Diana, And she goes, she's waiting for you. And I'm like, oh, send me the link, send me the link, send me the link. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, you're adorable. No worries. It's all good.
All right, baby. You take care. Be safe. We'll see each other again soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, she's so sweet. So sweet. It's so funny with the whole Zoom and you guys know the technological issues that we deal with every day on Nikki Nights. It's like, is the Zoom going to connect? Is it Eastern Standard Time, Pacific? Because we've had that where I've told people it's, I've been like, yeah, it's, I've been ready at like 11 a.m. And then I'm like, I think they think it's Pacific. So who knows? But Samantha Ferris, I adore you. And I can't wait to see you and hopefully work together. But yeah, when all of this ends, I'll be going up to Canada because you guys know that I love Canada. I really do. Like, honestly, I'm a New Yorker, but don't tell New York. Toronto's my favorite city in the world. With that said, bye.